Hey everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. Today we're joined by Wolfgang LaMarca, a global thought leader in logistics and the supply chain. He's led strategy at GeoPost and the World Economic Forum, and now advises on companies worldwide on the future of freight, technology, and sustainability. A true mastermind in the industry. I'm stoked to have him on and can't wait to dive into that lived and learned knowledge that he's gained through his time in the industry. So stick with us. We have an excellent episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, Wolfgang, thanks so much for joining in with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you working with us, especially with the time gap. You're all the way over in Hong Kong, correct?
That's right, Alex.
It's going to be awesome kind of getting your perspective on the entirety of logistics and your experience within. But with you having the exposure to Hong Kong as well, I think is going to be pretty cool to kind of tap into some of the comparisons of what you see within the logistics industry over there compared to what we know here in the United States as well. So I think that's going to be pretty neat. I want to thank you for rolling with the punches here, especially in scheduling. I know when I first scheduled you, I was looking at it, it looked like 1 hour off ended up being like 13 hours off with the AM PM mess. So I appreciate you rolling with the punches and joining in here with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure talking to you and sharing with the community.
Fantastic. Well, for those that may not know who you are, if you wouldn't mind just telling us exactly who you are and what is your role in the industry today?
Yeah, I'm a practitioner at the origin in the industry of transport, where it started, went to logistics, and ended up in supply chain. And I call myself a supply chain logistics expert because I'm not an expert in manufacturing, nor in retail, nor in e-commerce, but I have a good understanding across all sectors from end to end, from procurement to distribution and backwards. And my background is anchored in assignments with Kuno Nago, with TNT, which is now FedEx, with the French Post Office, and as you said, the World Economic Forum. What I do today is I'm advising a broad range of companies. It can be startups where we see the next phase of transport. It can be small and mid-sized enterprises that wish to move from the small scale to the large scale. And then there are the multinationals, multi-billion-dollar companies where I help to digitize their freight and logistics business.
Fantastic, man. You know, as I was telling you in the green room, it's really exciting for us to have guys like you on with your caliber and experiencing in the industry. That target audience that usually watches us is those guys that have been, company drivers looking to become owner operators, fleet owners, etc. But we'd love to get guys on from all throughout the broad industry to really show how many different moving parts there are and give kind of those varying perspectives from all around logistics. And, to have you on and have that worldwide exposure, I think is just massive to really show how big this machine is and have that different perspective within the industry. So truly thank you for coming on and letting us tap your brain a little bit today.
Yeah, I have seen the industry across many areas. So I made it from the shop floor to the top floor and above as supporting investors and having my own portfolio of startup investments. And my real passion lies in bringing the things together in the technology, uh, everything from IoT, which is fundamental to connect things, to broad architectures, which you need edge computing, and AI, of course.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I want to definitely bridge into those topics. I think that's going to be fantastic to tie into. But if you don't mind, let's take it all the way back. Why this industry? What got you in here in the first place? What kind of drew you to it?
I had always the interest to understand the connections between different countries, different continents. So I was fascinated by the explorers and by people like Marco Polo, and that in fact made me very receptive to stories of friends who worked in that industry and who moved to London or to Asia or to the States and worked from there. So I got very excited about this. And then I applied for a job in this industry at Kuehne Nagel at the time, and they took me.
That's fantastic. Well, through this time, you've had exposure in many different facets of, this realm. What has kept you in this industry? What's kept you excited, kept you around and coming back?
Yeah, I'm not a person that likes routine. So I don't like to know exactly every morning what happens to me during the day.
Right.
And industry is a perfect industry to respond to the need of unexpected circumstances and events. This is a problem-solving industry, and I think it's just fantastic for everybody to be in that industry. I sometimes see myself as the big project manager. On another day, I see myself as a Wall Street broker matching supply and demand. So it's very entrepreneurial, and that kept me. On the other hand, it is also the backbone of every economy. Without
Yeah.
logistics, nothing would work. We wouldn't have most of the things we enjoy today as citizens, as humans. So it has excitement and it has purpose.
Fully agree. And especially on the global scale, to me it's impressive at times just to step back and look at logistics as a whole within the United States and how sensitive of a system that is, complex, and I mean it without it like everything crumbles. But then you take a bigger step back and you look at that global connection and it's just mind-boggling how we're able to connect all the dots, and where thinking where we would be without it is kind of scary. But truly, truly, the backbone of really keeping all of these nations moving forward is the logistics industry.
Yeah, that's true. There is not one country in the world I could think of that is autonomous and self-sustainable. Even China is in need of massive resources and energy.
Yeah.
Uh, the US has energy, but has not all resources. And I think the beauty of our world is our diversity. Not everybody can be good in everything. And
Right.
that's reflected in the world economy. So you in fact connect through logistics and transport, you connect centers of excellence. And what we have, of course, to be careful about is that there is a certain balance, right? And not the centers concentrate too much at one place. But there are many hubs in the world where you have these excellent bases, which are producing things others can't. And there is, of course, a lot of imagination in the whole game, right? People like Italian cars, Italian sport cars, and
Yeah.
they come usually from Italy, at least supported by Italian brands.
100%. And I think there's also a beautiful factor there of seeing kind of the way logistics has helped countries work together. I mean, a lot of those relationships have been based around trade, for such a long time, but then seeing how that's sprouted and come to where it is today, and especially, learning from one another and also connecting the dots, helping that industry as a whole grow and become stronger every day.
Growth is linked to the things you deal with, whether you read or whether you work with people or on certain subjects. And transport is ideal to learn because you connect every day with different people. If there are, of course, jobs which are very routine, but I have always been in the international arena, which is very diverse. You have to improvise a lot. You have to make constantly new connections, and that means you're constantly learning. And with this combination of problem solving and learning, which in fact goes also together, you have a excellent space to grow and build your career.
100%. You know, while we're on the topic of kind of, the early days of your career and stuff, I'd like to tap in and just touch on mentorship and see through your time coming into the industry and learning the ropes and learning the roles and everything there is within, especially the international scene, was there anyone in your path that you considered a mentor that really helped you get where you are?
I had a lot of mentors, but probably I didn't have that much mentorship. And let me explain this. When I started to work, really to work in this space, I applied for a position at Kuno Nego, and they put me somewhere where I didn't want to be, which was local distribution, although I did this later. And I said, no, I want to do something international. And then they said, if you really want to do this, then I bring you to the ocean department and the head of ocean freight. And then you see where you land. I don't know what he had in mind saying that to me, but they brought me or introduced me to the head of ocean freight. And he said, you want to do this? If you're really keen to work here, then just join the team for a day, and I see and listen to my team what they think of you. And I think that's very typical for the industry, is you are thrown into things, and either you can swim or you cannot. But I think in our industry you have little choice, you better swim. And this person, the head of ocean freight at Kuno Nego, be recruited me again at TNT. So that's another very important element of the industry. These connections
Yeah.
can hold for a long time, and they can carry you through. So I think that I had the luck to have, in fact, a lot of mentors. I speak about that person, which was in fact Eckhart Gatzke. Um, and then I'm at TNT. I had other mentors. I entered into a senior management career, so that was much less operational. I spent 10 years more or less on the shop floor to to learn the basics, the fundamentals of the business before I started my senior management career, which lasted 20 years before I became independent. But there I had mentors that taught me to understand the broader context, which was excellent. So from just understanding how transport works, it moved to how teams work, how organization work, how the industry works.
That's fantastic. You know, from your aspect, well, let's do this because I'd like to kind of get a clarity to bring back to our listeners that are more on that trucking side. What does a normal day in your side of the industry look like? What type of things are you working on? And does it relate in any way to the trucking aspect or maritime aspect, or what division of the logistics industry is really your focus?
Yeah, let me go back to what my days looked like
Yeah.
when I was really in trucking. So I was a dispatcher in the 1980s.
Okay.
And what it was at those days, and I think that hasn't really changed, is that you come in the office and you just want to know what the situation is, because transportation never stops. That's another very interesting thing. So you come into the office and you need to understand what has happened with the trucks on the road, have the trucks loaded. And we were in the 80s, so we had no mobile phones. So there's a lot about uh, sense making sense of signals you got, messages, what people told you. And then you looked into, okay, what needs to be solved. And then you looked into, okay, what are the new things and how to organize them. Then you kicked it off and the whole story starts again. It's a constant process of sense making, to picking up information and then converting it into business, right? What is it today? It's it's very different. I'm working with very different people. So when I start my day, I usually have to go through my emails, which are hundreds. Then I get on probably in average 6 calls a day, which is 6 hours I spend talking to different people. This can be, as I said, a big corporate, a startup, but that can also be a research institute. And what I like to do is still to be in the action. That means when I take mandates, it's not theoretical. It's not so much about thinking. It's much more about doing still, even on that level and that scale. Meaning I'm part of leadership teams. You could call that steering committees or some board type of bodies that need to drive the show. And uh, despite all the technology we are having and all the progress we made, you still need people. So it's every day here. It is again the same story. It is sense making. It is what is working, what is moving, what is not moving. How can we make it move? And this is, of course, much more project based. But you can also say that every transport is a project. So I did project work in my early days, and I do project work today. And this may result not in the delivery of transport, but that may result in better monitoring of shipments. This may result in getting a client for one of my customers, or it may also result in a paper, in something we write together. And this is another aspect of the industry. There is hardly anybody who can do everything alone. Transport is a collaborative effort, and I'm constantly involved in different kind of collaborative effort to produce results which we want to achieve as a community or as a team.
That's a great way to look at it. And, I love the way you frame it there because it is really neat. No matter the level of the industry that you're at, when you look at it in that manner, the similarities that there are, and it's all the same at the end of the day. It's business from different aspects of the game, different perspectives, but there's still that mission at hand that, correlates very nicely together. Now, I'm curious, with you being in Hong Kong now, what is it that got you over there? Was that part of the industry itself that took you to that part of the world?
Mm, That's part of the reasons. So I spent time in Latin America. I spent time in the US. I lived in multiple countries in Europe, Asia. In my earlier days was a little bit alien to me. I had friends that were kids of ambassadors to China, and what they told and what they showed me was pretty different. But over time, I said, okay, I need to understand that part of the world.
Yeah.
So there was an interest in the 90s. I wanted to go, but then there was the Asian crisis. so that put things on hold. In 2004, I became the head of Asia Pacific Rim, and that was the move for me to go to Asia. At that time, my bosses thought we could run this out of Europe, but I told them we cannot run this out of Europe. We cannot parachute into Korea, Japan, and China and believe that we can build a business there. My bosses were always very receptive to my suggestions, and a few days later I was in Asia. That's how I got here, and what brought me to Hong Kong specifically is the geographic location. Because if you are responsible for Asia and you look at places, where do you want to be based to make your travel a bit more or less tiring, a bit
Yeah.
more efficient and less tiring, you will usually end up in Hong Kong, because I have 2 hours to Shanghai, I have 3 hours to Tokyo, I have three plus to Korea, I have three and a bit to Singapore, I have 2 to 2.5 to Bangkok. If you think about Singapore, you have 6 hours to Tokyo, you have 7 hours to Korea,
Yeah.
uh, and that means you have a lot of red eye flights and a probably disturbing or much more disrupted work schedule. So I can take a 7 o'clock flight to Shanghai, have my meetings during the day, and get out in the evening.
Well, and it's not a bad place to be, especially in your like international line of work. There's a lot of business going on in Hong Kong, so it's definitely a hot spot to be in.
Yeah, Hong Kong corresponds to my professional needs. I like entrepreneurial environments, and Hong Kong is probably one of the most entrepreneurial places in the world. It's also one of the most capitalist places in the world.
So with your exposure there in Hong Kong and around the world really, what has been some of the compare and contrast that you have seen in logistics on the ground from country to country?
I believe that we should more look into the similarities. I believe that the industry, the people in the industry are similar. Um, so, and the solutions we develop are similar, at least in the developed world. Um, because we are using the same technology, we are using the same vehicles, we are using the same software. Uh, we are dealing with the same shipments, just from two different ends. So when you
Right.
look at, at, at it from that perspective, then there is by default conversion of system and people and ways of operating. When you look at, let's say, Southeast Asia, um, it is, of course, much less developed. Or you look at places in Africa, it's very less developed. So you find different approaches. You cannot say because the economy is less developed, the solutions are less sophisticated. They might be more sophisticated because they have to deal with much more constraints. I said this at a conference in 20 years ago, that barriers and constraints are in fact a gift because they force you to leapfrog. That's why Africa never had landlines, right? They immediately moved to mobile phones.
Mm.
So that translates in Southeast Asia to the use of mobile phones and apps for managing logistics processes in a way which I have not been seen in the Western world. So they build a different system. That's maybe one difference here. And then, of course, industries evolve in different ways. The US is often very concentrated. If you take the small packages business, you have in fact three players. You have UPS, you have FedEx, and you have the post office. You don't have that much more. You have regional players, but it's very concentrated. Europe is by default more diverse because you have uh, different countries with different preferences,
Yeah.
and that's where players uh, build their differentiation on, and therefore you have more diversity. Asia is in the rise, so that's all emerging with Kenyao, the Alibaba logistics arm, as a rising star, or GD.com, also very interesting development and at a very different stage. And at the end, we are all moving goods. At the end, we have all customs clearance challenges. At the end, we have all data gap challenges. And Yeah, there is diversity, as I explained, but I like to look more on the common denominators. Maybe that's also something the industry teaches you, that you cannot get very far with gaps. You need to have seamless processes.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to look at it. I love the way that you painted that picture there, that, some places, may seem different, but maybe they're more technologically, advanced than it looks because of what they have to deal with their in their circumstances, I should say. In a recent episode, we had a guy on that started his trucking career over in Uzbekistan and then had relocated to United States, opened up a trucking company here and has grown into a fleet. And we were kind of comparing, contrasting, his trucking company he ran there versus here. And he kind of mentioned that same thing, that, it may seem like less of an advanced industry there, but they deal with so much more, because to go from where he was just to the coast to get the shipments, he had to pass through so many international borders. And he was like, in the United States, with all the states being the same nation, it's so much more streamlined of a process. So it is really interesting to see, how those processes and those, hurdles and so forth change throughout the different locations through the world.
Yeah, the first and best, say, holistic security system I saw in Brazil, where the dispatcher could monitor the opening and closing of doors. And this is, of course, because of the risk, the exposure to risk in Brazil. There are every night a lot of trucks get lost between Sao Paulo and Rio, and
Yeah.
you need to have monitoring system. You need to um, be more savvy when it comes to digitalization and data analysis. Otherwise, you cannot survive in this environment. In a safe and streamlined and a close to perfect environment, you can be pretty complacent and low tech. It's just running smoothly. Whereas in other situations, you have to be very creative and very technology driven to be even in a position to do business there.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. And you had mentioned earlier in the episode as well, talking about AI and different technologies. Technology is changing the freight industry, I mean, honestly, faster than ever at this point. From your perspective, the side of the industry you deal with, what tools, digital tools, do you think are actually making a difference out there versus what might just be hype?
Hype is a, let's say, overemphasis of the impact or the relevance of a certain component in a stack. That's how I see it. And we will have hype as long as we live, because we like hype, and hype is a way to make money. Um,
Very
when
true.
I go to my operator side, everything is important. I said it before. I believe that IoT, Internet of Things, IoT devices which connect, which generate information about assets or moving goods are fundamental because we are an industry of connection and IoT is a connector. When it comes to blockchain, um, many believe that blockchain was overhyped, which was certainly true, but blockchain has found its place. You can see it. I always compared it with the processor in a computer, but it's there. It's there in the financial systems. I work on a project which builds on a distributed ledger based technology based architecture. Uh, when we talk about AI, nobody implements AI. That supports my vision, right? Nobody implements AI. Nobody implements IoT. We are implementing bundles of technology which come in form of technological solutions, software or hardware. And I think that the industry has tremendously benefited in the past from technology. The whole communication technology, ICT at its early stage, has changed the way we could operate, had, has given us much more grip on what we are doing. I remember the days when I had to get into the car and try to catch a truck because they had forgotten their papers. So this is a thing of the past. Um, so I don't look into individual technologies. I believe in the combination of technologies. I believe in IoT. We will see a lot of AI driven solutions. AI will make our tools faster, better, more precise, will extend, enhance what they can do. So we will see a lot. Uh, and the technology is, from my perspective, not what pulls us. It's our willingness to use technology
Yeah.
what brings us forward. Uh, so meaning as well that the technology is probably 10x better than what we are doing with technology today, meaning it's all about the implementation. It's again what we are doing in transport. It's sense making, understanding what is out there, understanding what we need, and bring the things together. And what makes the implementation slow is that it takes time. It's not a plug and play world.
Yeah.
If you bring technology into your business, you embark usually on a 3-year journey. But at the end, if you get it right, you can build significant competitive edge.
One of the interesting things you mentioned there is the blockchain technology, and we've been hearing a lot of that even at the local trucking level of the industry recently. More on the financial sector of how that might change things. I'm curious with your exposure to kind of the international side of the industry. Um, what do you see with the blockchain technology within the next 5 years? Do you think that's going to end up being a major thing? And is there hurdles there in the international sense of that, in your perspective?
I don't see any hurdle in the international arena that could slow down blockchain developments. But there is not that one development.
Yeah,
We will find blockchain in architectures that combine single windows, which are the gateways that help exporters and importers uh, to get customs clearance done. Um, uh, I don't see any difficulty there, but we will see a lot of things that have blockchain in terms of architecture. financial flows, the management of financial flows in ports is very often supported by blockchain, but nobody talks about it
Yeah.
because of the hype situation, um, or the way we deal with hypes. We hype things to get them off the ground, to make quick money, and other for other reasons. But the hype has a negative side because
Yeah.
people get very tired after a while to hear about blockchain or to hear. We will have a AI fatigue at a certain point because you can't hear it anymore and you can't see it because it is not a transportation company that will deal with AI. These are software development companies that need to figure out how AI makes their solutions better. And then we don't buy AI. Today, we hear a lot about AI powered solutions, but that will also probably disappear. We will move on and we will buy transport management systems. We will buy fleet management systems. We will buy warehouse management system, port community systems, but they may be built on blockchain, AI, and certainly IoT.
100%. I love your perspective there. I want to tap into your thoughts around leadership and a little bit of mentorship again. You've shared a lot of experience, from Yale, MIT. What leadership lessons from those stages do you see that might apply to trucking business owners that can help them grow beyond the cab? I mean, you've seen industries grow at international level. How in your mind do you think we can apply that to the local truck, the local fleets in growth?
As I said before, the industry gives you a lot of tools, problem
Yeah.
solving, critical thinking. We don't believe everything people tell us. That's pretty dangerous. Um, when you want to move, I think it's always good to know the broader context. So to speak to people, work with people, uh, join seminars that talk about the broader topics, uh,
Yeah.
economy at large, society at large. Um, because, for example, the economy tells you what the market does. Society tells you how you need to run your business. What about next generation expectations? The big topics. Um, Join free MIT seminars. It's always a pleasure for me to listen to the academics on the one side and the researchers on the one side, and the practitioners they invite who bring to life what they think about and what they develop. I believe if you want to grow, you have to go out of your comfort zone and engage in the broader systems, how I would call it, the economic system, the societal system, the academic system. And there's so much out there. It's the challenge is not to have sufficient supply. It is to deal with abundance of supply and pick the right seminars. And that means you need to network. I didn't speak about that before, but networking is super critical. I mentioned it with my mentors, but in general, uh, if you want to grow beyond, it's you need to grow intellectually, you need to grow from a knowledge base, and you need to grow from a network base. You need every day. I try to add at least one or two or three connections and find new people. And
Yeah.
conversations are critical. So, which means, yes, there is your job and there is the day to day struggle, and that might be overwhelming. But to get to the next level, you need to make time to learn things beyond solving your day to day problems.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough as well. I think you nailed it on the head there with the networking aspect. And that's something I personally feel like I slept on for so long and really just got involved in the last few years. And I beat myself up for that constantly because, especially as you see on the international scene, and we've talked about those connections there, everything is built off connections from the international to the individual. And the more you're able to have that and build that and expand that, one, you never know when that's going to come useful. When knowing that person is going to be beneficial, when your name might get out there because of that. And just being in the general know. I feel like the more that you grow your network, you're more aware of everything going on. And especially as a business owner and growing within the business industry, that's always beneficial to be more in the know at all times.
I would like to emphasize two things when I hear you speaking about this. There is two things that make us, and the one is what we discussed now, which is the outer world. We are social beings. All what we are is at least tolerated by the outer world. And ideally, it is supported, it's facilitated. And then there is the other world, and this is the world in ourselves. So, as much as I emphasize the networking, it's very important that everybody is anchored in themselves. So you
Mm.
need to build your inner strengths. That means confidence. That means confidence in your ability to build relations, in your ability to solve problems, and your ability to understand technology and make the right choices. So whatever we find in the world around us, we have to bring it back into ourselves and convert it into value, into drivers, into capability. So there is that point that at the end, the only thing we have is ourselves, and we use ourselves to make connections if we are good in that, which is a capability in itself. And through these connections, we grow.
That's fantastic. I love that, man. You nailed it there. I feel like we've covered a lot today, and I really want to thank you for letting us, take some time out of your busy schedule to tap into that knowledge of yours. With that being said, is there anything you feel like we've missed worth throwing in here?
I like the conversation. It starts at the fundamentals. We touched upon a lot of things. Maybe one point which adds to it. I have tremendously benefited from languages because the ability to deal with other cultures is closely linked to understanding other cultures, and cultures are anchored in language. So if you have a language which is very straightforward, very simple, very effective, you're probably living in a culture of low context, straight to the point, rule based. But there are other cultures that use other languages, much more opaque, complex languages. And these are usually high context cultures. And they think much more about relationships and how the society works. So I think that everybody should at least learn one language which is low context, rule based, and one language which is a relationship based, high context, complexity versus simplicity. I think that would help in our mutual understanding.
That's fantastic. I love that, man. With your, just kind of throwing this out there, but with your exposure and your side in the industry, how many languages are you involved in that you have to communicate in regularly?
Uh, three,
Wow.
three. The regular is English, German, and French. And then there are some where I know words and forgot a bit, but these are the three I'm regularly using, and I'm confident in using them. I have a base in Mandarin. I did Russian. I was quite okay in Spanish, but the main languages I'm using today are the three.
That's fantastic. Man, you've inspired me. I'm gonna go sign up for Duolingo. I gotta get my, my languages on. Consider it a challenge.
It is, but we like challenges, right? They bring us forward.
Most definitely. Well, Wolfgang, I've learned so much from you today. I'd love to offer you the time to get you back on again in the future. If you're ever interested, we'd love to have you back on and dive deeper with you. But I want to thank you so much for letting us take some of the time out of your schedule today. And we'll keep up with you. And man, just thank you so much for all you do in the industry.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, everyone out there, make sure you like and subscribe. I appreciate you tagging along with us today. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a wonderful day.